The house was silent, wrapped in the kind of stillness that only came in the dead of night. Ethan Parker stirred in his sleep, restless. His subconscious mind tugged by something just beyond his awareness. Then it came, low and guttural, a sound that sent a ripple of unease down his spine. Growl. Not a distant one. Not the kind his golden retriever, Max, reserved for stray animals or the occasional rustle outside. This was different, closer, more urgent. Ethan's eyes blinked open, adjusting to the dim glow of the bedside clock. 2:47 a.m. His pulse quickened. Max stood rigid near the bedroom door. His stance tense, ears perked. His deep brown eyes flicked between Ethan and something just beyond the wooden frame. The dog's tail, usually an indicator of his mood, remained stiff, neither wagging nor relaxed. "What is it, buddy?" Ethan's voice was hoarse with sleep, but the unease in his chest had settled like a stone. Max's response was another growl, this one sharper, pointed. Then, to Ethan's surprise, the dog turned away from the door. Instead, he padded toward the foot of the bed, toward Sophia's belongings. Ethan frowned, pushing himself upright. His wife lay beside him, undisturbed, breathing evenly in sleep. The soft glow from the streetlight outside bathed her features in a silver hue, her dark lashes resting against her cheek, her chest rising and falling in slow rhythm. She looked peaceful, innocent. So why did Ethan feel anything but reassured? Max sniffed at Sophia's purse, which she had carelessly dropped near the foot of the bed earlier that evening. The dog's nose worked rapidly, his body tense. Then he let out a whimper, followed by a sharp bark. The sound jolted Ethan fully awake. "Sure, Max," he hissed, glancing at Sophia. She didn't stir. Ethan swung his legs over the side of the bed and crouched down beside his dog, placing a calming hand on Max's back. He could feel the tremor beneath the thick golden fur. The dog was truly disturbed by something. Curiosity gnawed at him. With slow, deliberate movements, Ethan reached for Sophia's purse. It wasn't something he would usually do. Snooping was beneath him, but something about Max's insistence demanded his attention. The moment his fingers brushed against the leather, Max whined. Ethan unzipped the bag, heart pounding harder than it should have been for such a simple act. His fingers closed around the first thing they met, a small, crumpled piece of paper. Receipt. Frowning, he unfolded it and brought it closer to the faint light. His breath hitched. The Crestwood Hotel. Total: $178.40. Time: 9:56 p.m. A cold sensation unfurled in his stomach. Sophia had told him she was working late. She had sent him a text around that time, something brief. "Running behind, don't wait up." He had thought nothing of it then. But now, Ethan's grip on the receipt tightened. Why would she be at a hotel at nearly 10 p.m.? He swallowed, the air suddenly thick, suffocating. His gaze flicked to Max, whose ears remained pinned back. The dog had known. Somehow he had sensed it. A part of Ethan wanted to shake Sophia awake, demand an explanation. But another part, one deeply rooted in reason, held him back. Confronting her now, half asleep, might only lead to excuses. He needed more than suspicion. He exhaled slowly and tucked the receipt into his own nightstand drawer. Then, running a hand down Max's back, he whispered, "Good boy." Max didn't relax. His gaze remained locked on Sophia, as if waiting for something more. Ethan lay back down, eyes staring at the ceiling, thoughts churning. Sleep would not come again tonight. And deep in his gut he knew, this was just the beginning. Morning arrived sluggishly, dragging golden light through the curtains, but Ethan had barely slept. His mind had turned the receipt over 100 times, scrutinizing every possible explanation, every alternative to the gnawing thought he refused to name. Sophia stirred beside him, stretching with a quiet hum before rolling onto her side. Her dark hair spilled over the pillow, framing her face in a way that once made his heart ache with adoration. Now that ache had twisted into something darker, something edged with doubt. "Morning," she murmured, eyes still half closed. Ethan forced a smile. "Morning." She reached for him lazily, fingers brushing his arm, but the contact sent an uncomfortable pulse through his body. He withdrew. Not obviously, not enough to alarm her, but enough to feel it. The first real distance between them. If she noticed, she didn't say anything. Instead, she sat up, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "I had the strangest dream," she said lightly. Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm living a nightmare." Max, curled on the floor by the window, lifted his head. His dark eyes flicked between them, ears twitching. He was watching again, reading something in the air that Ethan couldn't quite see. Sophia swung her legs over the edge of the bed. "I need coffee," she said with a sleepy sigh, standing and stretching. As she did, the sleeve of her robe slipped, exposing the soft curve of her shoulder. And there, just above her collarbone, was something that did not belong. Ethan froze. A faint mark. Small, almost imperceptible, but there. Bruise. The room shifted. His ears filled with the sound of his own heartbeat. Every rational thought tried to cling to an excuse. Maybe she bumped into something. Maybe it was nothing. But his gut knew better. The weight of the hotel receipt burned in his mind. The pieces weren't just suspicions anymore. They were forming a picture, ugly and undeniable. She must have caught his stare because she turned, brows furrowing. "What?" For a fraction of a second, Ethan considered pretending, smiling, moving past it. But the words slipped out before he could stop them. "That bruise," he said, voice too even, too sharp. Sophia blinked, touching her shoulder absent-mindedly. "Oh," she laughed lightly, but something in her eyes flickered. That was the moment. That was the lie forming before she even spoke it. "I must have bumped into something at work," she said. "Didn't even notice." Ethan held her gaze, searching for cracks. Looking for the wife he had known for 10 years. The woman who couldn't lie about where she hid Christmas presents, let alone something like this. Max stood up then, stretching before trotting over to Sophia. His nose twitched, and then, without warning, he growled. A deep, rumbling sound that Ethan had never heard directed at her before. Sophia startled, stepping back. "Max, what the hell?" Ethan didn't move. Didn't speak. Max growled again, more pointed this time. Eyes locked on Sophia's robe. "The fabric. The scent." Sophia forced a nervous laugh and waved a hand. "Jesus, did I step on his tail or something?" Ethan rose from the bed slowly. His mind no longer battling questions, only conclusions. He couldn't unsee the signs. Couldn't ignore the way Max reacted only to her. Only when she returned home late. Only when the air around her carried something foreign. Something that didn't belong to their life together. Something that belonged to someone else. A long silence stretched between them. Sophia bit her lip, eyes flicking to him, waiting for something. His suspicion, his confrontation, his trust. Ethan exhaled through his nose, then turned away. "Yeah," he said, voice unreadable. "Maybe you did." But deep down he knew the truth. And so did Max. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, fingers curled around a steaming cup of coffee. He had no intention of drinking. The aroma of freshly brewed beans filled the air, but it did nothing to settle the gnawing unease in his gut. Across the room, Sophia hummed softly as she moved around the kitchen. Her movements fluid, natural, practiced. Max sat by Ethan's feet, silent but watchful. The dog's body was tense. His gaze tracking Sophia like a sentry monitoring an intruder. Ethan had always believed in logic, in trusting the tangible over instinct. But now he wasn't sure if the only honest thing left in his house was the dog at his feet. "Are you working late again tonight?" Ethan asked, keeping his voice light, neutral. Sophia hesitated. A fraction of a second, just enough for someone who was paying attention to catch it. "Yeah," she said, reaching for her coffee. "Big project deadline coming up. Probably won't be home until after 10. The same time stamped on that hotel receipt. Ethan nodded, setting his cup down. Long hours lately, he mused. She turned, leaning against the counter with a small sigh. No. Sucks. But once this project's wrapped up, things should go back to normal. Normal. Ethan wondered what normal even meant anymore. Max shifted beside him, his body rigid, ears alert. Sophia took a sip of her coffee, oblivious to the way the dog reacted as she moved closer. And then it happened again. A growl, low, unmistakable. Sophia flinched, glancing down at Max in surprise. What is his deal today? She forced a small laugh, stepping back. I think he needs to go for a walk or something. He's acting weird. Ethan studied the scene, the way Max only reacted when she was near, the way his posture stiffened, his lips pulled back ever so slightly. Dogs didn't lie. Ethan set his cup aside and leaned back in his chair. Maybe he smells something. Sophia frowned. What do you mean? Dogs have incredible noses. They can pick up scents we don't even notice. He let the words hang in the air for just a moment longer than necessary. Sophia's fingers tightened around her mug. Well, whatever it is, it's annoying. He's never acted like this before. Before the late nights. Before the secrets. Before the scent of another man started lingering on her skin. Ethan's mind raced, but he kept his expression unreadable. He wasn't ready to confront her, not yet. He needed to be sure. I should take him out, he said, rising from his chair. Max perked up immediately, tail flicking. Good idea, Sophia said quickly, her relief almost too eager. Maybe he just needs some fresh air. Or maybe he needed to get away from whatever perfume, cologne, or unspoken truth clung to her like an invisible stain. Ethan clipped the leash onto Max's collar and headed toward the door. Before stepping outside, he glanced back. Sophia had already turned away, her phone in hand. Her fingers moved swiftly over the screen. Texting. Max let out a quiet huff, and Ethan felt it in his bones, the slow, sinking confirmation of a truth he could no longer ignore. As they stepped outside, the cold morning air wrapped around him, sharp and sobering. He gripped the leash tighter, his jaw set. It was time to find out exactly what Sophia had been hiding.